Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about another very large system, kind of a different one if you will than the ones we've been talking about. It's pretty correlated, but it's gonna be more specifically about the Northeast. This time I've been kind of focusing on the storms, two systems, right? One that was across the Midwest, one that was coming onto the West Coast. And now I'll be talking about a nor'easter that will be forming partly from that system that was across the Midwest, and really a main part of it will be coming from the Atlantic Ocean in terms of moisture, and there's going to be a lot of it, and I definitely want to talk about that. And I say forming because yes, it hasn't yet formed, and I will be briefly talking about that system across the West and what it will do as it moves across the United States. So I will be covering many areas today as well, not just the Northeast. I do want to say that before we get into this, if you guys would like to support this channel, you could do so by subscribing. Obviously if you're new, check out the channel first, watch the videos, see if you enjoy it. Don't subscribe just because I told you so, but it is a great way to support the channel. Liking the video is also a very good way, and if you have any comments, concerns, questions, leave them down below. I will do my best to answer them. Alright, let's start talking about this. So first off, I just want to show you what has happened kind of across the United States with these past systems. And first off, let's take a look at the past really 72-hour accumulated rainfall. So you've been probably hearing a lot about these massive rainstorms, and particularly the one that was hitting the west coast all across the news, or from really my channel. It's been a pretty big story, and that's been pretty well reasoned as to why it was been talked about for so much. I mean, you can see there's been a lot of rain, right, for the western United States, which has been lacking in terms of rainfall. So that's a good thing, and a lot of these areas were tolerable amounts, if you will. 2 inches were kind of the highest amounts in Idaho, 2 to 3, 1 to 2 kind of elsewhere into into Oregon, 1 to 2, maybe even 3 inches in some isolated locations, right there, even some higher amounts. But really, where the heaviest were kind of fell was across Northern California, and yes, there was a lot, meaning a ton. This is why it was so, if you will, historic, because I mean, cities like Sacramento picked up almost 6 inches of rain. You can see there was well over 6 inches for many areas right here. San Francisco, very large city, pretty iconic, right? You can see picked up 3 to 4 inches. Hasn't happened in a very long time, if really ever at all. I don't know if there was any records broken for these cities. Probably to some degree. I don't know in particular of any, but yeah, you could see right there just north of Lake Oroville, 9, 8, 7 inches in the mountains. This is pretty good news. Unfortunately, not the best because of the burn scars areas and the mudslides and what. There is some damage, but at least there is rain. That is was beneficial. The San Joaquin Valley, the area that grows all that food, you could see picked up some decent rains as well, but this won't bust California out of the drought. But hopefully it's kind of a sign of a pattern to come. But again, it's not really a sign of a pattern to come, and it's not really a sign of it doesn't really mean anything, because I saw a few news articles that are saying, oh, this means it's not going to be a wet winter. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a storm, and we'll have to wait and see whether or not it continues to be wet or active. And notice that across the Midwest, really heavy rainfall amounts. You could see into Illinois, there were some 4 or 5 inch amounts, into Iowa, Des Moines, 3 inches, around Chicago, 3 inch amounts as well, into Michigan, decent rainfall totals as well. And now it's time for the Northeast, as I indicated by this title, and I want to focus on that. And I just wanted to go over this because I've been talking about it for so many days. I kind of want to look back and see, if this was forecasted, if this was not, if this was a bit more. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat that this is a bit more rainfall than what was forecasted, but overall a pretty good job the models did. And of course the National Weather Service. You could see that there are flood kind of advisories, warnings for the rivers kind of in wake of that large system. It's pulling away, so it's definitely going to be kind of these warnings are probably going to be going away soon, or advisories, as the rain is going to be abiding. But notice here we have the Northeast, and these are more like, what's to come, warning about what can happen. And you notice that it's not raining right now in New York, and it's actually pretty clear, but tonight, heavy rain, tomorrow, heavy rain. And let me take a look at this. I want to show you something. I clicked on this earlier, and Such a forecast isn't always, you don't always see it, but look, 1 to 2 inches of rain tonight, 2 to 3 inches of rain tomorrow. So, potentially up to 6 inches they're forecasting, with definitely localized amounts even higher. So, yes, this isn't something that is, that's why I'm calling it a powerful nor'easter, or whatever word choice I use in the title. And I'm going to time this now out for you, right? So, this is using model data that is a bit older. It is 3 hours old, so it's not really going to make a difference. Right, but let's zoom in on the Northeast. I know I'm gonna zoom in, I'm gonna kind of cut off the rest of the United States, but I think this is interesting for anyone that lives anywhere, because just of how beautiful this storm will be in a perspective, or in terms of meteorological conditions. Again, it won't be so beautiful when your house may be flooding. So again, don't flip those words inside out on me. I'm not saying it's beautiful with what it'll bring, just how it looks kind of on the radar and the weather model. So let's see. Here is our timeline. This is 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Let's get up to when I'm recording this video. So 6 now, or 6 right there. Let's see what happens. So notice we do have 2 large clusters of storms, kind of showers, one across Ohio, one across the Virginia area, and those 2 could be producing some very heavy rainfall. The one in Ohio weakens, and I do want to say that there is rain further to the north, but it's not really heavy. It's kind of light to moderate rain. And this one really starts developing, and it actually starts developing a warm front. And in the next few hours after I record this video, large cities across the Northeast, like New York City, Boston, and into portions of Connecticut, Rhode Island, will be seeing very potentially heavy downpours, even some severe weather. Look at that; those are little individual storms. They can be blasting, maybe even an inch in an hour, right? Especially look right there across Virginia. That's kind of that northeast tilted band. It will definitely have more coverage, and yes, that already drops quite a bit of rainfall. And this is by 9, 10 today, 11, and yes, this by itself is already a pretty powerful event, if you will, in terms of rainfall. Look what starts happening across the coast. Very effective rainfall from this kind of plume of moisture starts developing into a low pressure. And as I push this into time, let me zoom out on this because this is a bit too far in, kind of zoomed in. By midnight today, this is what the situation looks like. I mean, it's pretty much raining across much of the Northeast into Connecticut, Rhode Island, down New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, up into Boston, just pretty much everywhere, right? Pennsylvania, and upstate New York, or sorry, kind of the first half of the upstate of New York, kind of the one closer to the ocean. And notice that we do see very heavy rain, and look right there, we see there will be periods of breaks. So notice right there, Connecticut and Rhode Island are kind of free of rain, but look just to the south into New Jersey, New York, we see very heavy rainfall pivoting in. Again, this is kind of blinding rain where your windshield wipers are going to be going back and forth for a while. And I'm going to tell you, because we experienced this storm yesterday, it's not going to be as strong. Or sorry, this one will be stronger than what we experienced. In just a few seconds, I'll show you how it intensifies really quickly. But this rain is it's powerful. It's almost like from a weak thunderstorm, and it just continues for hours, which is why it's so kind of dangerous, because the flooding just goes on and on and on. It doesn't have time to drain away whatsoever. And notice that it just gets worse progressively with each hour, that rainfall and that flooding. And notice that by 5 a.m. tomorrow, so daylight starting to break across the Northeast, we see the rain continuing, now spreading all the way into Canada, right, the border of the U.S. and Canada. It's still raining across the Long Island, now back into Connecticut, Massachusetts. And that little low pressure that seems to be kind of going away actually takes a curve right towards the shore. And by 10 a.m. we see a decent setup for a decent storm, and we start seeing that whole system come together. Look at this explosion right there. Very heavy rain moves into almost little bands like you would have with a tropical storm or a hurricane. Moves into the Northeast, more of New England, I should say, kind of Connecticut, Massachusetts, not really so much New Jersey and New York City. And look, we do see that heavy rain start pivoting into Maine as well from the previous bands, but it will struggle kind of making its way there, so that's why it will be a bit lighter there. But look how strong that is. That is a very strong millibar pressure. The waves, you can imagine, are just going to be absolutely giant. So if there are any small vessels or whatever, small craft, large craft, it could be easily damaged, maybe swept away. I mean, that is a storm that hasn't occurred here for a while. Probably the biggest, strongest comparable one was that one tropical storm that occurred that kind of went into the Northeast. I forgot what was it called, but it was, or what its name was, but it was earlier this year. And yeah, it's going to be comparable in terms of winds. I mean, look at that thing. The wind field isn't massive, but where it is blowing, it's blowing really hard, and thankfully it doesn't really slam right into the coast, but I mean the kind of little edge, the tip of Long Island, right? Southern Connecticut, Rhode Island, and southern Massachusetts could be seeing some very powerful winds, and the rain still does continue for a bit while after, and it does start kind of pivoting away, and the rain does stay more towards really Maine and into New Hampshire and southern Canada. But let's take a look at this total rainfall, because it may not seem impressive, and it's gonna be impressive. These amounts are gonna be widespread over 2 to 3 inches, with localized amounts, as you can see, the little red and even yellow colorings up to 6, 7 across some of these areas. Now, this is just one weather model. There are weather models that show more, and let's see if we could find those. This is the NAM 12KM. It is a different model, more long range, a bit less accurate, I would say, but notice it's in agreement with her model, and it shows a lot for New York right there. You know, that kind of 4 to 6 inch range, which is just a absurd amount to be talking about in the first place. Let's take a look at the FV3. It's a very high res, and you can see that it does point out some higher numbers right there across central New Jersey, kind of close to the shore. We see maybe even 6 inches again, maybe even more. So yes, at least there's, they're agreeing on this. No model is kind of saying, oh, we're just not going to see any rain. And this one really shows, a Canadian high res shows over widespread amounts over 6 inches, 6, 7, 8, if not even 9 inches of rain. So that would definitely not be good. This is HRDPS, another model. You could see, I mean, each model I'm showing you here is consistent. And even if I show you the global models, like the GFS, it's a big model, right? Not really that accurate in terms of precision, but it does show us a good representation of what's to come for like a larger area. But let's still take a look at it, and you can see that again targets the tri-state area, if you will. With, again, several inches. The Canadian model does favor some higher amounts, and again, you can see it does so in a pretty major way across, especially just south of Long Island, and really affecting Long Island as well. Long Island. And I just want to add on that there will be another storm after this into the weekend for the Northeast. And if I zoom forward into time, by next Monday, right, you can see the amounts, they multiply by quite a bit, and we see more rain. And same thing with the GFS. This is what it shows, through this first storm, and then through that second one, you can see a lot of rain gets added on. And these models, the high-res ones, don't go out far enough to show that system. But yes, an absolute beast of a system is coming on, and it will be very windy, very strong. Just a classic nor'easter, if you will. Just really doesn't have snow, but it doesn't need to have snow to be a nor'easter. And let's take a look at these rainfall amounts from the Office of Albany, and you can see that they're showing 4 to 6 right there, kind of the hot spot right just east of Hunter. And anywhere else, decent amounts. Albany up to 2 inches, which again is quite a bit. And if you're to take a glance at just the coastal areas where it could be the heaviest, the forecast amounts are obviously even higher. And you can see the National Weather Service are warning that it's a coastal storm. It's going to be strong. Those are the rainfall amounts. You could see some areas predicted over 4 inches. So again, this isn't like what's fallen. This is what's gonna fall. And these are pretty high amounts to kind of start the forecast with. They may even go higher, and they probably will end up being higher at the end of the event. And look at these max wind gusts. And I mean, these are pretty nasty wind gusts. And you can see 28, so that's not that bad. But as you get towards southern New England and into portions of Long Island, we get amounts of up to 45 to 50 of wind gusts. And I'm just going to tell you right now that with as much rain as there could be, these trees often get they loosen their grip on the soil, and sometimes it's much easier to topple them over, especially when you have 50 miles per hour. So I saw a few trees in my area getting completely snapped off or broken, and we saw again 40 to 50 miles per hour, and it was just constant wind blowing during the night, which I guess was nice, but it also made falling asleep a bit weird, because usually these large kind of widespread wind events occur during more in the winter time, and now there were still leaves on the trees. It was a bit of an earlier one, so it was just loud. It was very loud, and I was kind of caught off guard by that, to say the least. But yeah, let's show you one more model, the European. I showed you kind of the GFS, the Canadian, what they show in terms of that rainfall. I didn't really show you how they played out, but for that, I'll just show you what the European kind of thinks the radar will look like. And let's take a look at this again. All that rain already starting today, going into tomorrow, and look, it does intensify into a very large system, very strong wind gusts. The European thinks will be a bit more windy for most. It has a stronger and larger wind field, but again, you can see that it does continue bringing rain, precipitation, and that does finally may skedaddle out of here. But as I did mention, we do have that system across the west that will be occurring at the same time this nor'easter is occurring, and this will affect areas like Wyoming, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, and that by the time the midweek comes, it moves out into the plains. There could be a few days of severe weather across Kansas, kind of Texas, Arkansas, well, eventually into Arkansas and Louisiana. But notice that this one is kind of the big one that brought the huge amounts of rain across the west, and it does kind of spin away for a few days across the Midwest. It is large. I mean, it's massive. Look at the size of that thing. Not necessarily the strongest storm, but again, very large, and it does bring additional rain to the northeast. And I do want to mention that, kind of off topic here, there will be a lot of cold air behind these two systems, and it's almost like an Arctic invasion, as close as you could get one for November. Very, very, very cold air. At this point, all the models are showing this. It is rather confident that it will be occurring. And, yeah, it looks as if, you know, very chilly nights. You can see some snow into the Texas panhandles right there, into Oklahoma panhandle, maybe even into Oklahoma City. I mean, this will be a very, very cold air mass for November. And the temperatures will obviously be reflecting that. Look at these nighttime temperatures. You know, maybe not as cold up here, but into, you know, Missouri or Kentucky, Tennessee, these are very cold temperatures. And if I were to take a look at the anomaly, you can see that really the contrast from cold airs across the south right there, especially where it's 30 degrees below average, where there could be some of that snowfall for sure across the panhandle and what you saw across New Mexico. So that's definitely interesting. And yeah, that's basically it. That's just kind of what I want to show you. Let's take a look at the European but total accumulated precip for kind of the northeast. So again, from the first system, it will be some very decent amounts. You know, this one shows up to 6, maybe even some localized 7-inch amounts. And then once that second one comes through, these amounts balloon into, you know, potentially almost even the double digits for a few isolated locations. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, more rain is on its way, and for a lot of the areas that already saw rain, and another inch to inch and a half is coming for Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Iowa, even more for Iowa and Missouri right there, 3 to 5 inches, and a lot of these areas did already see heavy rain. So yeah, stay safe. You know, turn around, don't drown on flooded roadways. This is a pretty nasty event, and it will be going on for the next few days. But afterwards, I wouldn't say I would. I mean, I would say it's a calmer pattern, but not necessarily pleasant, as it will be, as you saw, much colder, much more aggressive in terms of those temperatures being much lower. And let me show you what the GFS shows. It's a pretty good model, right? It goes out 384 hours, and look, there's our systems. They move away, and look, there's our cold air. It is pretty darn chilly, bringing lake effect to the Great Lakes. Probably, you know, the first lake effect event, first snow event for that part of the country. And they do show some signs of a pattern kind of warming up, but right there you could see a snowstorm potentially in Michigan from a large system. So we'll have to wait and see. Again, these systems at this point in time are going to be more and more snowy and going to have a lot of cold air. And I'm going to tell you that with such a cold air mass, all we need is a storm like this, and we could have a very, very large snowstorm. You know, this one has it across Michigan, kind of southern Canada. There could be one, you know, further to the southeast. There's one that show a coastal storm. It's a very interesting kind of a pattern we could be looking at, and you can see that the temperature anomaly is, in this particular one, decent across the central part of the country. Alright guys, thank you so much, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. See ya.